It says on the website, it says a southeastern Siouan Blackfoot nation. The Saponi Nation of Ohio is a tribal group composed of descendants and heirs of the historic Saponi Nation. We are a subgroup of the Dakota from the time when our Siouan ancestors lived in the Ohio River Valley around 1200 AD. According to archaeologists and others, the original native population of Ohio country was wholly or mainly Siouan. Anthropologists generally agree to and on a great Siouan occupation of the Ohio lands. At the beginning of historic time, the great Ohio Valley had been emptied by Iroquois invaders. The Siouan people were separated, going to the four directions. Some of the Siouan tribes were driven towards the southeast, which is the North Carolina and Virginia, and found refuge in Virginia and the Carolinas. They then merged on the pages of history as the Tutelo, the Saponi, the Monacan, the Occaneechi, and others. Lieutenant Governor Alexander Spotswood by Virginia sought to protect the various Siouan people by inviting them to settle in 1713 around Fort Christiana in Brunswick County, Virginia. From the Western history's point of view, these groups were consolidated as the Saponi Nation. During this period, the various groups migrated back and forth and across the Virginia, Carolina, Piedmont area, seeking the safe refuge as English settlements overwhelmed the Piedmont area. The Eastern Siouan tribes, as well as the other native people, were pressured to cede their lands and move west. A band went north and was ultimately absorbed by the Six Nations. Another group went southeast and became associated with the five civilized tribes. A third group stayed in the Piedmont area, while a fourth group went south and joined the Catawba Nation. Our group returned to the Ohio River Valley, the ancestral homeland of the Siouan people. The Saponi people returned in mass into southeastern Ohio in the early 1600s. The English and Christian surnames they had taken to begin to appear in Gallia, Jackson, Lawrence, Pike, Ross, and Highland counties. Our present-day Saponi community encompasses only a fractional portion of our ancestral territory and is located primarily at Gallia, Jackson, and Lawrence counties in Ohio. The Siouan Saponi, one of the oldest groups of indigenous people in the Ohio River Valley, have upheld the proud heritage of their people and have struggled defiantly to preserve their Indian community. Native American Roots, a timeline. Compiled by Sidney Stilgess, Feet. 1200, 1600, home is where the heart is. The Ohio River Valley Sioux, related to the Dakota tribe, were located in what is now southeastern Ohio, including Gallia, Meigs, Vinton, Lawrence, Jackson, Pike, Highland, and Ross counties. 1600, 1700, population boom. The Ohio River Valley Sioux became so large in population that their settlements spread to the eastern slopes of the Allegheny Mountains in what is now Virginia and West Virginia. During that time, the Tutelo, Saponi, and other tribes related to the Sioux made first contact with European colonists. Because of the attacks by the Iroquois from the north, these Siouan tribes were forced to move to North Carolina. 1700, 1750, Iroquois attack. The language spoken by the Siouan tribes was Tutelo, and part of the people called the Tutelo, while others called themselves by the names including Saponi. In 1711, Governor Alexander Spotswood of Virginia offered sanctuary to the Tutelo and related tribes, who were still being attacked by the Iroquois. The sanctuary was located at Fort Christiana, Virginia, so the people returned to Virginia. The Iroquois attacks stopped at the signing of the Treaty of 1722. The tribe began to move north to Pennsylvania and New York under pressure from the white settlers coming into Virginia. 1753 through 1780s, running from settlers. They were adopted into the Six Nations of the Iroquois by the Cayuga, one of the Six Nations, and lived in Cayuga villages in New York during the American Revolution War. Some members of the Tutelo and Saponi, together with the Cayuga and Mohawks, crossed the Canadian border and settled in the valley of Grand River in southwestern Ontario. The area is still known today as Tutela Heights. The Saponi people who lived in the region adjoining the Ohio River Valley near Pennsylvania under the rule of Six Nations of the Iroquois were called Mingos. In 1770, a group of Mingos, Saponis, fled from white settlers and moved to Chillicothe, Ohio. This group splintered again as white civilization forced them onto the reservation. Some of the people who refused reservation life fled west to Missouri Indian Territory. By 1780, the Saponis were driven out of Virginia by whites from the east and Iroquois from the west. Some were found living in Mount Airy, North Carolina in 1780. 1800s, new identity. Saponis Indians of Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, Southeast Kentucky, Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania refer to themselves as Catawba or Blackfoot of the Saponi Nation. About 1870, a small number of Saponi, known as the Catawba Indians, settled on the Saponi Reservation in Greenville County, Virginia. 1830, Indian removal. The Indian Removal Act became law. The law made it legal to remove Native Americans from their land. In the Southeast, Indians were rounded up by soldiers and forced to march long distances to reservations. Many Indians died on these journeys. Because of the Indian Removal Act, many Native Americans began to refer to themselves as colored or mulatto to avoid removal. Therefore, the former Saponi were forced to take English names. The descendants of the Ohio River Valley Sioux are now called Blackfoot Band of the Saponi Nation of Ohio, Incorporated. Following is a partial listing of family names which are included in the bylaws of the Saponi Nation of Ohio, Incorporated. If you or your immediate family members carries one of the following names, the chances are very high that you are descended from the Indians who survived removal by merging into the mainstream culture. Core family names: Burnett, Chavis, Shavers, Coker, Crocker, Cradolph, Dungy, Harris, Howell, Long, Marsh, McKill, Kell, Kills, Scott, Stewart. Extended family names: Bass, Boiling, Brown, Branham, Bird, Collins, Corn, Cousins, Dempsey, Dixon, Garland, Gibson, Goings, Griffin, Guy, Hathcock, Hart, Haskins, Hawkins, Henson, Holly, Hughes, James, Jeffries, spelled with the IES, and both Jeffries with the EYS, Johnson, Jones, Keaton, Lingens, Martin, Mason, Matthews, McDaniel, McKinney, Moss, Newman, Nichols, Parker, Pettiford, Raglan, Rickman, Richardson, Robinson, Robins, Saunders, Sanders, Shoemake, Simmons, Spears, Steels, Valentine, Vaughn, Viney, Watkins, Watson, Witt, and Winborn. Now, on this website called the HalawSaponi.org, it says here, it says about our tribe. The HalawSaponi are Native American peoples of the Northeast Piedmont region of the state of North Carolina. The name Halawa is derived from two counties of Halifax, and Warren, which are the ancestral homelands of the Saponi people dating back to the early 18th century. As you see here, this is an ancestor of mine, my great-great-grandmother on my father's side of the family, through my great-grandmother, Millie Ann, this is her mother, which was my grandfather's grandma. So, as you see, her name is Alice Chavers. Now, another variation of this name is Chavis, which is Chavis, and then Shavers, spelled with the S, Shavers. But it's the same family within the Saponi Nation. And as you see, this is an ancestor on my mom's side of the family, that she was born in Halifax County. And as you know, that Halifax is a county, along with Warren County, is where a lot of the Saponi Indians had fled to after they were being attacked by the Iroquois and the white settlers that was coming into the Ohio Valley region. Saponi Indians, like the Powhatans, recognized a supreme creator God and a number of helper spirits. Unlike the Powhatans, however, they believed that this world was just the most recent of many created by the God, and previous ones have either disappeared or been destroyed. The Saponis also credited their God with rewarding the virtuous among them with health and wealth, while liars and cheats suffered from hunger and chronic illness. On this website is called Fort Christiana, and it's talking about the Saponi Indians as well as the Occaneechees, the Suckanuk, and the Tutelo Indian tribes. It says, nearby to the south stood Fort Christiana, a wooden structure built in 1714 under the auspices of Alexander Spotwood and the Virginia Indian Company. Members of the Me-Ponsky, Occaneechee, Saponi, Stuckanuk, and Tutelo Indian tribes lived within the fort and built a nearby settlement. The fort included a frontier trading post, and the English operated a school to educate and convert the Indians to Christianity there. The Virginia Indian Company was dissolved in 1717. Funding for the garrison ceased the next year. By 1740, the Indian groups no longer lived at the fort but had migrated to other areas nearby in the region. If you like this video, please drop me a like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can know when I drop a new video. Thanks.